and welcome to another Sister Circle Live with me chatting with friends that are not in person. So, welcome and thanks for joining me. I'm here with Miss Jackie Hill Perry. Many of you will already know who she is. If you don't, you're in for a treat. Now, listen, me and Jackie have been here trying to get things right. She got babies crying in the background. I'm sitting here trying to figure out why the setting sun is messing up my lighting situation. But y'all, we are here. Kids are threatened to watch Boomerang, not interrupt, or at football practice. You were in your car. You changed location. So what?
I did
Where are
because
you?
the sun is going down, and I knew my melanin wasn't gonna be able to stand up to that kind of assault.
Okay, so y'all hear babies crying in the background. This is it. This is
Yeah.
real life. Okay, so we are excited to be with you. I've had Jackie on with me before on the podcast, and so I'll be sure to put that in the notes for this video after we're done. So if you didn't listen to that podcast, then you can catch our conversation, the conversation that we had before there. So since that conversation, Jackie, you've released a book,
Yes.
Gay Girl, Good God, which I
Yes.
told you when I saw it, I was just like, go title. Go, like, go
Yeah.
title. Because I
I had
don't,
to pray they was gonna let that one go.
listen, did you have anything about that title?
No, no, it was just a lot of fears. It was some like, all right. And so they had to go, B&H had to go and check with their folks to see if it was good to go. And I was just praying that they would see the heart and the marketing behind it.
Listen.
So
So this was your idea. Like this is your title that came from your gut.
yeah, just randomly.
It just came to you because sometimes it works like that.
Yeah. So, because we was in a titling meeting and they were coming up with, and I love the team. No title. Well, no idea is a bad idea. Some of the titles just were bad, and they weren't fitting to me. It sounded like devotionals.
And you don't read like a devotion. There's nothing
I don't.
like a devotion.
Yeah, I didn't want no flowers on my cover with coffee cups.
You didn't want pink or purple either, did you?
I sure didn't.
Uh-huh.
No.
I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that. Okay, so I asked you so many questions that were, kind of out of my own curiosity or what I thought people were asking about on the podcast. But I kind of want to take a little bit of a different angle before we swing back around to some specifics about your journey in the book. So I'm just going to take a little bit of an angle. First of all,
Okay.
you are a tell it like it is kind of person. And I mean, you're good to give a clap back. I saw you give a clap back the other day on Twitter.
What'd I say?
I don't know what they said, but you were just, maybe it was like they were going to unfollow, maybe.
Oh yeah.
Like, okay, see you
Yeah.
later. Like, glory be to
Yeah.
God, bless you.
Yeah.
Go on your marriage.
Love you.
Okay, so here's what I want to ask you about that, because even the title, Gay Girl, Good God, kind of is you in the sense that you're like, I just want to, this is what it is. This is what it is. This is my journey. But that's just how you are, period.
Right.
When you're speaking, when you're chatting online, when you're giving an occasional clap back, you're just like, you're kind, but clear. And so one of the things that I think makes you unique, which if I can just say so, which is one of the reasons why I think you're a little on fire, you've been on fire even before the book came out. People are attracted to real, people are attracted to authentic, and people are attracted to straight talk. But we live in a very carefully bred Christian, we got to be careful, don't want to offend kind of culture.
Yeah.
How have you found it difficult or not at all difficult to maintain you in a sea of, just in a Christian environment where everybody's trying to be so careful. Everybody's trying to be careful.
Yeah.
So, talk to me about that.
That's a great question. I don't know. I think I try to. So when I first got saved, I was very much zealous and with not an ounce of wisdom, and just learned. I thought that my zeal and my truth, I thought it was love, irregardless of how it was presented or how it was said. And so I think as I've grown and just kind of been around people older than me in the faith and ministry, I've learned how to be honest and truthful while at the same time being very gracious and careful, because I know language really does matter. And so I guess I say all that to say I think I've learned how to flesh stuff out through the lens of love. You know, am I saying what I'm saying out of love, out of mercy? Have I thought through how it could be perceived? Because even that, I've learned so much through Twitter and social media and just being on stages that you could say something that you genuinely think is okay, and people will come back and they've heard it a completely different way. And
Or
so I've
outside,
learned to,
they heard the clip.
huh?
They heard the clip.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's like, for some people, it's just not their fault. That's just how they heard it. And so for me, I'm always considering so many different angles before I say anything. So yeah, but at the same time, it's like I don't have time to not be myself, if that makes sense. And that's not to say I'm in the flesh. I'm saying as far as my personality is concerned, if it's funny, I'ma say it. You know, if it's true, I'ma say it. If it's a lot of stuff I don't say because I have a strong spirit of sarcasm that will just not be all right, you know. So I don't know. I don't even know if that answers your question, but just fleshing it all out through love and stuff like that, I think that is the best way to be honest and careful in myself all at the same time.
Okay, so you just said something I think is important. You said you learn how to be yourself, not in the
Right.
flesh, but
Mm-hmm.
yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You were trying to explain that to somebody. What's the difference?
Yeah.
Some people
Well, I think
keep the flesh and themselves confused.
yeah, because the flesh Jackie doesn't care what anybody has to say. The flesh Jackie is just gonna say what she feels. This how the spirit works through Jackie is no. Let's dissect what you want to say. So let's say I wanna tell for example, I had a guy on Twitter the other day who responded to a post I made about Tamar being raped by her brother. And what he said, I thought was very offensive. What Jackie wants to say is, "You tripping, you bogus." He was tripping, and he was being bogus. But instead of that, I was like, "No, love will say, do you think that that was the most helpful thing that you could present in light of this conversation?" You get what I'm saying? And so I'm still honest, and I've still went to the heart of the issue, which is he's saying something that he shouldn't be saying. But I've thought about him before I responded out of the flesh. And so that's still me. I'm still being honest, but I thought about him in my honesty. And I think that's what love does. You know?
That's what love does. I was just with
Yeah.
Bob Goff, and that hit me. Okay, so I think that one of the things I've been talking about is being comfortable in your own skin, and I want to
Mm,
ask you this because I think this will segue into some of the specifics about your story in your book. You are a person, period. Christian,
yeah.
non-Christian. It's very obvious that you're a girl who is you just I'm good with me. Not that there has not that there have never been insecurities, not that there have
Mm-hmm.
never been things that you've wrestled with, but you're pretty comfortable in your skin goes. Why do you think that is? Is it just strictly your personality? Is it something about your upbringing? Is it something about your experience? Because again, I think this goes back to why people want to hear what you have to say
Yeah.
because they know when you speak, they're getting
Yeah.
you. So
Yeah.
why do you think that is?
I, I I think it's a really a collaboration of a lot of things. I think it's genetics. I think if you met my mother is the most she is the most it is what it is woman that you will ever meet in your life.
Okay.
And so I think that's what I observed my whole life was a woman who was very much herself, and very much unapologetic about it. I also think a lot of that has come with being secure or becoming more secure in what how God has made me and what God has called me to do. Because in high school and middle school, I was bullied, I was talked about, I was very insecure full of anxiety, extremely introverted, very not shy per se, but super emotional, super sensitive. And so who I am now really doesn't make any sense to who I used to be. But I think as I've grown, it's just like, no, like, Lord, you gave me this voice, you gave me these weird quirks, you gave me this mind that thinks about things differently, and I shouldn't be afraid to walk in that and be that way. And I'm not old. Well, yeah, that gets weird when you
Not
start
as
using that
old as
word.
me. I'm still bitter about you calling me mother in the DMs, by the way. Just FYI. Y'all,
You are.
Graham DM, she called me mother. I was
You
like,
are
what
a
are you
mother.
talking to?
Mothers in the church
I
are
don't,
historically they're given to honor.
whatever. That did not feel honoring. That felt like you were calling me old. That's what it felt like. So, baby, I
I'm
need
sorry.
to where I can receive that. But
Okay,
I was like, wait a minute.
I'll just stick to sis. I do sis.
Okay,
But I'm 29, so I'm still very young.
I'm
But
27.
as I'm growing, I just I don't know. I think that's just a part of maturity. And so when I'm 50, I'm excited to see how much more comfortable I'll be.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so turning this corner to talk about your story. I One of the main, and I know there's no blanket answer for this. I want your answer, but one of the main questions that a lot of people in the Christian faith, let's just, and I'm saying this because this is in my world. This is what I hear people talking about. Okay, so if you're going to say, if you're going to make the statement of your belief that that God created Adam and Eve, and all the things people say, and you have to deal with the reality that there are people that, whether you call it gender confusion, whether you call it just a different identity, whether there's been a struggle their whole lives, you have to admit that there is a struggle for people,
Mm-hmm.
whether they've adopted a lifestyle, changed the way they identify for other people, whatever it looks like. There is something that's going on the inside, and you just mentioned bullying. If you were going to um, say in bullet point form,
Hmm.
what you think were things that lined up in your past, in your history, on the inside or outside of you, that led you to identify as a gay woman. What would you say those things are? And again, I want to state
Hmm.
this is Jackie talking about Jackie, y'all. This is not
Mm-hmm.
a treatise on the
Yeah.
whole world, but just for you.
Yeah. Definitely not a generalization or something to be applied to everybody. I think first sin, uh, sexual abuse, fatherlessness, um, yeah, confusion, identity. I think those would be some things that I would think. Yeah.
Well, let me pick on fatherlessness for a second. I
Mm-hmm.
think if somebody's a believer, and honestly, where we are right now, depending on where they are in their belief as a believer.
Mm-hmm.
But so let's just make sin an assumption, okay? Um, but you mentioned fatherlessness. I think that was the third thing that you mentioned. Talk about
Yeah.
why fatherlessness would be a contributing factor in your situation.
Yeah. I think for me personally, it I think the fatherlessness and the abuse honestly kind of go hand in hand
Okay.
because one thing my counselor walk me through is we were talking about just my relationship with my dad and the abuse and all of that type of stuff. And she was like, do you remember your dad? Do you remember the first time, or do you remember your father hugging you when you were 5 6, kissing you, telling you I love you? I was like, nah, I don't remember that at all. And she was like, but you remember the abuse when you were 5 or 6? I said, yeah. She was like, so it seems as if the first time you remember being touched by a man was when he was abusing you. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think in light of when you connect that also to the absence of my dad and what felt like the lack of protection and safety that existed, while at the same time I have a mother who is very present, very comforting, very nurturing. I think it can formulate in my mind that men are not safe, but women are. And I think that latches on to the pre-existing sin that already is there.
So I know that fatherlessness is a topic that Many have broached to give a foundation for the explanation of many issues in our culture. What and when people talk about God as a father, this song, He's a good father.
Yeah.
I've had women say to me, or people say to me, it's really hard to sing that song because I
Mm.
want to believe that He is, but
Mm.
good and father don't go together for me.
Mm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
what has been some practical and tangible um, what are some practical and tangible thoughts that you can share for how you have been able to embrace God as a good father when
Mm.
that wasn't necessarily the case with your earthly father?
Yeah. To me, I've always known that they weren't the same.
Okay.
Um, that God wasn't created, so He wasn't born. And Jesus was born, obviously, but He was still eternal and pre-existent. And so He didn't even come into the earth with the same issues that my dad had. You know what I'm saying? And so there's a sense of me understanding that who God is not to be compared to what my father was. That God really is all that He, if He is holy, then the way He loves me has to be the most perfect kind of love that exists. And if He is holy, then He can't lie to me. And if He is holy, then He's going to be very much consistent and faithful and steadfast. And so I guess for me, it's always been, I just have to take God's word for it. And I can't project onto God what other people have done. I just have to allow God to say, no, this is who I am, and this is what is to be believed. And I know for many, that's a very difficult thing, but I think faith is hard. And I don't think anybody could ever get to a point where they're like, I believe everything about God. But I do think there's a kind of willingness to believe, even if it doesn't feel true, that we have to have.
When you say faith is hard, so and I've got a couple of things that I want to ask you about on this topic. You talk about not being saved, getting saved, not just being saved, but actually being discipled.
Yeah.
I love how you said in our last conversation that a lot of people want mentors or they want to be discipled, but they want to pick what the person who disciples them, what they look like. And
Mm-hmm.
they may be missing out on what God is trying to give them because
Mm-hmm.
the picture of that person may not look like what they have in their head. So you went through this process not only of shifting your lifestyle, but shifting your walk with the Lord. So there is a
Mm-hmm.
before Jesus Jackie, and then there's an after Jesus Jackie, and a becoming with Jesus Jackie.
Amen.
But a lot of people don't have that story. There are a lot of people that would agree with you that their lifestyle, homosexuality, is sin. But as after Jesus, it's still a struggle. They're still in it. And so when they hear your story, they're thinking, okay, that's great. So Jesus came in and stuff changed. Well,
Mm.
Jesus is in me. It's something I want victory in,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not happening.
Mm-hmm.
And really, this is a bigger thing because I think it doesn't matter what the issue is. I think I remember being in a Christian school, and I would always hear the major stories. It was like it was rough and da da da, and then Jesus came in and voila, and I was sitting there going, Jesus,
Yeah.
I think so. I got saved about 30 times because I had to make sure it took all the other time. So what do you say to people who that's not their story? They don't have this mark, this, before Christ, after, ADBC kind of situation.
Mm.
They're working through it. What is your encouragement to them?
Well, one, I would tell them to not to assume that there is no struggle,
Right.
not to assume that post Jesus, the old Jackie ain't still popping up every day. And so I just wouldn't assume that, because that's just not true. Is there victory over sin? Absolutely. But that victory is hard. And for there to be some type of victory, that means there got to be some type of fight. And so that means I'm fighting constantly in many ways. So there's that. I think too, I would want them to ask themselves, why isn't there victory? Because there might be many reasons. Is there unbelief? Is there no community? Is there a lack of discipleship? Is there a lack of time with God? Does there need to be some fasting that needs to happen? Does there need to be just a commitment to believe that God is all that he says he is, and really believe that the resurrection is that powerful? I think there's a lot of questions that somebody has to ask themselves. But I think the best thing also is to ask yourself that question within other people that know you and love you, because we don't even know why we tripping half of the time. But we have friends or pastors or elders or leaders that will be able to pinpoint and identify. It's like you might just be burnt out. That's why you ain't got no victory. You're in ministry doing, but you have no time with the Lord to even pour into you. So that's why you're struggling and why you're falling like you're crazy. So I think there's a lot. There's a lot.
Okay. I watched, and I wish I knew the name of it. As you're talking, it's coming to me. This wasn't a plain question, but it was a documentary.
The Heart of Man. No.
No, no,
Oh,
because
look at me.
I don't know. I know, but that's good. The Heart of Man is
Oh,
really good.
okay.
No, no, no. It was a documentary, but one of the statements was made. A person who, had a couple of attempts at suicide, and um, just really, really struggling with their belief in God and what they felt like that belief in God demanded in terms of a shift in their lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
He just said, I don't know how else to pray the gay away. And I've done all the things. So
Right.
all the things you just listed, I'm doing the fasting. I'm doing all these things. And it's just, and that's, honestly, I mean, just being honest for me, one of the struggles that I have in this climate where this is a discussion and honestly a debate amongst Christians in terms of
Mm-hmm.
what the Bible says and what it means. My heart, I'm just being real. My heart says it hurts me to think about people for whatever reason. This is just one of many reasons.
Yeah.
Let me back away from this topic for a minute. If a woman tells me that she's in a marriage and she's miserable, and she believes in biblical reasons for divorce, and he hasn't cheated on her, there's no abuse to speak of, it's just he's just mean, and she's just miserable, it's just
Yeah.
miserable. It's really hard for me to look her straight in the face when there is a painful situation,
Right.
um, and offer truth, because my heart, I want to fix it. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I want you to feel better. So that's
Yeah.
to take that and sit that on top of the issue of homosexuality. When someone has said that, and I'm sure you've heard that, there's a genuine desire, and they've done the things, and they're like, it's not taken. Like, I'm
Mm.
doing the things.
Mm.
What are you then saying to them?
Well, one, the whole idea of praying the gay away is in essence, you're saying, God, please remove my capacity for temptation. Take away the flesh. I think when we look at Jesus, Jesus was God in the flesh, yet Jesus lived 33 years of his life being tempted, yet without sin. And so the prayer has to be different. I don't think the prayer should be, God, take the gay away, or God, please don't allow me to be tempted, but rather, God, please give me the power to endure this. Please give me the power to be holy. Please give me the power to flee sexual immorality. Please give me the power to take up my cross daily. I think I talk about this in my book, how we look at Jesus's command to take up our cross daily, and we forget, one, that the crucifixion was long. And so I think we separate the fact that God is saying, no, you got to do this every day. So
Hmm.
there's something that we have to die to every day, and that even on the cross, it took him a minute before he died. And so how much more so will it take us a minute sometimes to feel victory or to see victory in our lives? And so the prayers, they have to change. It can't be that. It can't be even I'm sorry for rambling, but there was this guy I saw, and he left his wife because for 23 years he I guess was trying to be heterosexual, saw that it didn't work, if you will, and said, you know what, I'm just gonna be out here gay. That was what he believed. And what I thought to myself is, I wonder if for 23 years he was trying to be straight instead of trying to love God. Those are two different things.
Wow. Yeah.
Because for some of us, there is not a legitimate attraction for the opposite sex. And I think that is okay. Trying to be married to be straight is not going to make you right with God, nor is it going to change your heart. What changes our heart is faith. I didn't say change our orientation, nor did I say change our attractions, but changing how we live happens when we believe that God is able to do exceedingly and abundantly above. And so you might very well be tempted for the rest of your life, but is God not able to help you endure that? Absolutely. So,
Okay. So one other question I'm asking, a little beyond you, but I appreciate, as I've said before, you just tell it like it is. And there are not a lot of people, let's be honest. There are not a lot of people who have been willing to be honest enough about their own story, where other people who really want to know or really want to understand can ask. You know what I mean? It's just like, okay, so I've had someone say to me, but this is so much different, because if I'm going to love God by being faithful in this area, because if there's like you said, if there's a same-sex attraction, it is no different than me and dark chocolate almonds. I always got some in my fridge. It's always on. Okay, it's always
okay.
That's my thing. All right, and in addition to some other things.
Okay.
But his statement to me was, he said, "But yes, if you say I'm going to live a pure life, and if that means I have to be single forever, then so be it. You still have the possibility of marriage. There's still hope for something. If I'm not attracted to someone of the opposite sex, I'm just not. Not like I'm attracted to someone of the same sex. I'm not attracted at all to somebody of the opposite sex. Then I basically am by myself forever." So where is if that is the story of a gay girl, where's the good God in that? I mean, that's the question.
And I think that concern is so real. And I empathize deeply with it. Because I can see how that can be heartbreaking. I see how that could be frustrating.
Yeah.
And also I can only empathize with it to a degree, because obviously that's not the circumstance that I'm in, seeing that I'm married and do have an attraction for my husband. And so I guess Sam Alberry and Christopher Yuan, I feel like they speak to this topic so much better than I can, because it's something they live, being two men who are same-sex attracted and feel as if they are called to celibacy. And one thing Sam hits on a lot is that we in many ways in our culture have assumed that intimacy can only happen through sexual relationships. And I don't mean sexual as in having sex, but intimate, I love you, you love me, let's hug, let's get married. We've centered intimacy around that, when all that isn't just the kind of intimacy or community that God has called us to engage in. And so it sounds stupid. It sounds it sounds, what's the word? Foolish to say that no, we do have relationships, and they may not be in our bed, but they are in our churches. They are in our families. They are in our friendships. And are they as deep as male and female, or as husband and wife? No, they're not. But can they sustain us? I do believe that they can. Will they sustain us as deeply as we prefer? No. But I think that's what heaven is for. Heaven is the primary place where we will be satisfied to the fullest. And so until then, I think we do have a burden, and I think they do have a burden to carry, but God is able to help. So that's tough. It's difficult, but I think Sam Alberry and Christopher Yuan, they have a lot of resources about that.
Okay, I'll try to remember to put that in the notes too.
Yeah.
Those of you who are here, did your husband just say be quiet?
He did. He sure did.
Listen.
Hey, Preston, you on YouTube?
y'all need to understand. I just, and I'm sure you get the whole thing about ministry and being on a stage and having a mic, and this idea that it's this glamorous whatever.
Yeah.
And then you got kids in the background. You're like, be quiet. Be quiet. Y'all,
They crying at the same time. I don't know if you can hear it.
I can hear them like faintly. I mean, it's not,
Okay.
yeah,
It's both of them.
it's reality. Okay, so those of you who are watching, I do want you to know that I'm looking down every now and then because I'm looking at your comments. And if
Mm.
you have specific questions that you want me to ask Jackie, and if it fits in with where we are and what we're talking about, feel free. Feel free to ask. Feel free to ask. So I see your comments, and I'm glad you're tracking along with our conversation. But listen, I want to make sure that if you have a question, you get it answered. Okay, so one of the things that I saw, and I don't remember where this was. I'm assuming maybe Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody wants to figure out what I'm talking about, they can go back and look. But you were sitting across the table from a lady who has a decent platform. Who I was surprised, to be honest, because we often want to assume that we know who we can connect with, and often the
Mm.
people that we connect with look
Mm-hmm.
like us.
Mm-hmm.
Just look like we could hang out. And y'all are both beautiful, but you have two different expressions of hair and clothes and all that kind of stuff. So it made me think of this when it comes to your journey as a woman. Okay, your woman as a gay girl, your life as a woman, as a married woman. I mean, just all that in between. Have you had any struggle at all in your the choice in how you represent yourself, how you dress, how you wear your hair, and that being feminine or not feminine?
Mm.
Has that ever been a struggle at all? Because I know that that's one of the things that sometimes that and let me just say this. I have a friend, a very good friend, who just a couple days ago said to me, she was so bothered that somebody at work walked up to her and said, I don't know how the conversation led up to it, but they said, "Girl, please, I thought you were gay." She was offended, but it's her dress. It's, and she's a real hip kind of person. But she
Yeah.
was like, it was like they were accusing me of living a sinful lifestyle. I don't want to lead people that way, but why can't I
Yeah.
be me?
Yeah.
So is that
That's
been a
sad.
struggle for you? And what?
It used to be. It used to be when I first got saved. Yeah, I just went extreme. I was wearing eyelashes. They were just mighty heavy on my lids. Uh, lip gloss, nails, just all types of things that didn't even feel comfortable. But it was me trying to fit into this mold of what I thought femininity and womanhood was. But it was as I don't know what happened. It might be age. I don't know what happened, but I got to a point where it might have just come with me reading the Bible and seeing that these things that we call feminine a lot of times are womanly are cultural. We're saying that nails is what makes a woman, or tight jeans, or wearing dresses often, or having makeup on your face. Is that really how we define womanhood? As if Eve wasn't called woman before she ever behaved like one? And so obviously my woman, or my version of woman, can't be defined or shouldn't be defined by these things, but rather it's what God made me to be. It's what I am biologically, it's what I am emotionally, it's what I am mentally. That's what makes me a woman. Now I think the expression of that, it should there be some type of clarity. Yes, I do believe that there are some ways that aren't necessarily sinful as it relates to what you wear, but I think there are some ways where if I am hiding who God has made me to be, then I need to dig into that. If I'm walking around with my chest flattened, or if I'm sagging my pants, or sitting and behaving in certain ways. I'm not saying you're in sin, but I am saying, yeah, you should flesh that out and figure out the why. But to say that I have to wear dresses to be a woman, I think that's culture and not Christ. So,
Okay, good, because yoga
yeah,
pants is where it's at for me, for real.
they're great. And Adidas pants. I love them.
Listen, okay, someone said, how long did it take you to forgive your father? And just the other day,
Mm,
I had a whole um, I jump on Instagram every now and then and do lives where I just ask a question for the night and just
yeah.
sit there and chat, being the big sister, not the mentor, not
Mm,
the mother, but the big sister.
mm,
And one of the things was forgiveness. And people really struggle to understand that forgiveness is not a feeling, but when the feeling comes, what am I supposed to do with that?
Yeah.
So I do want you to answer the question, like, what did forgiveness look like for you, your father, but also, what does it look like to forgive
Mm.
beyond the words, I forgive
Mm-hmm.
you? What what does that mean? You do,
Mm.
especially if the feeling is still there.
You are such a good interviewer person. You you should
Yay!
do this a lot.
I'm trying.
I think you do, but you need to be
Listen,
on
I can only
some.
wrangle the kids to watch Boomerang though for so long. That's the
You
problem.
need to get paid for this, Chrystal. I'm trying to tell you,
I hope
people will
one day I
watch.
do.
We gonna pray. I think for me, forgiveness. This is for me personally. Forgiveness has always looked like mercy. And I think when it came to my dad, I think when I became so one, I think it was easier for me to forgive him because he's gone. I think if he was still alive, my answer might be the same, but I think it would be a lot different. I
Which
think
is
it would
interesting
be,
because a lot of people
yeah,
struggle more when the person's dead
really,
because there's no closure. They're like they didn't get to like.
yeah, I could see
I've
that.
heard
I,
both.
I think for me, it's like you gone and you can't hurt me anymore. And so to continue to hold on to it doesn't in my mind doesn't make sense. But I think if he was alive, it would be a continual act of forgiving him because I think he probably would have continued to behave the same way. But I think when I became a believer, and I started to understand sin and trauma and just all that type of stuff, I felt like God was trying to show me, even though the way he loved me didn't feel like love, I really think he was doing the best that he could do, even though it sucked,
Mm,
even though it was hurtful and harmful and traumatic. I don't think he knew how not to love me that way. And so to me, it was like God was showing me that man was sinful. He was selfish, in many ways narcissistic. He even struggled with depression and being bipolar. And so when I consider all of that, I feel a mercy because I see that he couldn't even help it. You get what I'm saying? And so I think for me, it's you didn't know how not to be in the flesh. You didn't know how not to serve me. You didn't know how not to be how you were. And so I had to chunk it up to his nature and all of that. And so I think some people might feel, well, I'm giving them a pass. You're right. You're right. And I
wow,
think I
wow.
think I think with Christ, it's not that he didn't give, it's not that he gave us a free pass. He obviously paid the penalty, but in a sense, that's your nature. But I'm gonna be merciful anyway. I'm gonna forgive you even though I know you ain't good biblically. You have offended me, you have hurt me, you have broken promises, you have been inconsistent, but I am going to be kind and merciful and love you anyway. And so I think forgiveness is that, it's a choice to be merciful. And it's hard though. Why
Yeah,
is my
it is hard.
yeah.
Okay, so it's so interesting what you're saying because in our current climate, there are some things happening, and I don't know when people are going to watch this YouTube video, but I'll just say
Yeah.
there's some things happening where what you just said to somebody is rubbing them the wrong way because
Yeah.
all they heard you just say is that we just have to say, well, it's their nature.
Right.
So and that's not what you're saying. So I want to
Right.
clarify the difference between what you're saying, which is a choice to release someone from a debt they owe you that actually they cannot pay.
Right.
But that is not the same as what may be rubbing someone the same way, which is people shouldn't be held accountable um,
Oh,
for their
that's
actions.
definitely not. Yeah, that's definitely not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I go ahead.
no, no, no. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think so. For people that are alive that I've had to forgive, so much of the forgiveness is so, it's weird. There has to be a conversation because I'm not going to forgive you. I'm not going to say that. I'm going to forgive you because I've been commanded to, even if you don't change. But I think it's helpful for me to still discuss what has happened, as long as it depends on me. be at peace with all men. And so, hey, you hurt me. I didn't like the way you said this. You've been doing this for the last decade, and I don't know what's up. Like I think from my own spiritual health and heart, and to get rid of bitterness, I got to get that out. I got to say, this is what you've done. But I can't hinge my forgiveness on their response, because
Yeah.
if that happens,
Yeah.
I'm never going to forgive them.
You're never free. You're
No,
never free.
I have people in my life that have not changed after several conversations. And so for me, it's like, I'm going to just obey God. At the end of the day, I can't wait on you to change. I can't wait on you to be more loving. I can't wait on you to stop being selfish. I'm going to obey God, and I'm going to trust him with your heart. And that's that.
That's good.
So I let him know, and I let him go.
I want to just let you do what you do for just a second. I'm going to ask you a question that I know you could just go on and on and on for a minute. I just want you to know, when you apologize just a second ago for rambling, like, this is a
Mhm.
okay.
Okay.
God is good. You said, gay girl, good God. He is good because.
Because he is, by nature. So I think intrinsically he's good, as in pure, holy, righteous. Um, he is not evil, not able to sin. So that, but he's good and does good. And so he creates us in his image, and then we sin against him. And he has the audacity to say, well, you know what? I still love you, and I'm still going to send my son, Christ Jesus, to die for you. Because I mean, we could say, does God provide? Yeah, he's good because I ate today. I had some coffee. He's good because I can see. He's good because I have two children that are alive and well. He's good because I have breath in my body, as the saints say. But even if I didn't have all that, he would still be good. But I think the highest good that God has done for us is to forgive us and to give us his son so that we could live eternally with him when we don't deserve it. I don't know how much gooder, that ain't a word, but it is today. I don't know how much gooder he can get when I consider that.
And so when you talk about him being good and he's good to you,
Yeah.
one of the things that I hear a lot of people talking about is the balance between receiving God's forgiveness
Mm-hmm.
and not feeling so low about yourself because you needed this good God to swoop in and save you from being such a bad person. Feeling okay about yourself, not okay because you're righteous, but okay because you're loved and you're valued because he says so. Like,
Right.
being able to accept his goodness and accept his forgiveness without that meaning that you have no confidence, or, it's kind of like what I was saying earlier. Like, you are who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a confidence about you, and you don't walk around with your head held low like God had to forgive me, and a lot of people do. So how do we
Yeah.
suppose God's goodness with our not goodness without having to be feeling sorry and sucky all the time?
Well, that sounds like shame. Is that shame? It sounds like
Probably.
shame.
Probably.
Yeah. Well, I think we have, for me, I think you would have to move into, now, out of this goodness, out of this forgiveness, who does he say I am? Because if I'm walking around with a sense of pity or a sense of shame, maybe I haven't moved towards seeing myself in light of the newness that I've been given and provided out of that goodness. So if God says that I am forgiven, then I should not function as if I'm not. Or if God says that I am a new creation, I should not function as if I'm the same person. Or if God uses Paul and Peter and references the church as beloved, meaning I'm loved of God. I think seeing how God talks about me, is that the Lord in your room?
This
Did
is
he
the
show
Lord
up?
in my room. He said, "Let there be light." I'm trying to turn it down. I thought the sun would last, but it hasn't. I'm gonna turn it
You
off.
are a light on the hill in real
Yeah,
life.
that shall not be hidden. Okay, keep going. Keep going. I was trying to do it while you were talking because they can't see me while you're talking.
But it
But you
just
have to
got
call it
bright,
out.
girl. You look like you on Mount Sinai for a second. I didn't know if thunder and the trumpet was gonna sound.
Oh,
But yeah, I think it's yeah. His goodness has also given me a new name and a new identity and a new awareness of life and all that it is. And so there's no need to walk around with my head down when he don't treat me like that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It
Why
probably
do you
don't.
so hard? No, no, no. But women in particular, I mean, we all do, but I think women in particular, whether it's struggle with homosexuality, whether it's a struggle with promiscuity, whether it's a struggle
Mm-hmm.
with, I mean, listen, if I let me go to Target looking crazy and run into
Mm-hmm.
somebody I went to high school with, that's how I feel. You know what I mean? So I'm just saying we have this struggle with not wanting to people to see the stuff that we struggle with. So when
Mm-hmm.
you know God is good and you know what He says about you, but you're struggling to connect, did you struggle to connect? God is good, and I want to believe what a good God says about me. Um, Even working through your struggles, how, how did that? I mean, what did that look like for you? Because people struggle to put the two together. Really, I think.
Honestly, no. Honestly. And I really do mean, I'm not trying to sound like I got it together, but I didn't. I'll say the times I struggle with understanding and believing the goodness of God is when life isn't good. It's not when I'm struggling with sin. It's not when I'm dealing with temptation. It's usually when I'm praying for something and it's not happening, or there's a death that I'm grieving, or that it's usually circumstances, not my inward issues, that cause me to question the goodness of God. But I feel like I, I I feel like doubt for me drives me insane. And I don't like going through life with no peace and no joy. And so there have been many times in my short walk with the Lord where I just have had to choose to believe that He is doing something good in all of this turmoil. But I've also had to have some really good friends around me, because I often have seasons of depression where goodness is definitely absent. And I don't feel like fighting. I don't feel like believing. I don't feel like listening to not a nan worship song. I don't feel like going to church. I don't feel like doing nothing spiritual to try to fight my way out. But I've had friends that I can call, and my husband even, where I say, can you fight for me? Can you be the one continually praying with me and for me? I don't even want to ask you to do this, but I feel like that's the only thing that's going to keep me sane. And so yeah.
Yeah, we're working on memorizing James again. We didn't make it all the way through. We made it to James chapter 3, so we're back in
Yeah.
chapter 1. We starting over. But I
Yeah.
even my kids, and I always say the first place I ever give a message is at the kitchen table with my boys, and if I can hold them captive, I should be good.
Hmm.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
But just this whole doubt, this whole idea of the one who doubts being blown and tossed by the wind. And I was like, listen,
Yeah.
if you're gonna be half in and half out, it'll make you crazy. It'll make
Yeah.
you crazy, and
Yeah.
it will steal your peace. So I like what you said about that. Okay, so I know in your book you talk about the gay community. Okay, on page 93, you say the gay community is called that for a reason.
Mm.
It is a community, a collective of people with different names, social statuses, eating habits, upbringings, and more, but with one commonality shared among them that made all more alike than not their sexuality. This is your community. This was your community. What fears leaving your community or changing how you interacted with that community did you have? Or was there fear at all?
Yeah, there was. I think I primarily feared, I just didn't know what going into a church would be like. Just because my experiences with, not all Christians were trash, but a lot of
There you go again.
not all of them, but a few of them were, the experiences were so disheartening, where I really did feel like I just was so aware of my lesbianism around Christians because they were so aware of it. And so I was fearful of going into a space where I didn't know if they would treat me the same, if they would judge me, or I don't want you around my daughter, or just center my entire personhood around my sexuality. But God was great where that wasn't the kind of church I found myself in. They really did truly love me for me. I think my fears of leaving my community were, one, that people wouldn't understand, because my conversion was so abrupt. It wasn't like I was going to church randomly or listening to Marvin Sapp where they're like, oh, she finna get saved. It literally came out of
You
nowhere.
didn't post you on your grid the
It
whole nine. You didn't give
None of that. None of that.
well, that was
It
funny.
was
Did you
it
leave it
was
up?
some
Did you take it down? Y'all, she put on
oh yeah, I
Instagram.
took that at 11 p.m. I wasn't playing with
Listen,
y'all.
y'all, she put on her Instagram 9 of her favorite gospel albums, which you went back a minute. It was really good.
I
And then she
did.
said, but I can't leave it up because it's gonna mess up my grid.
I don't like ugly grids. People with grids, they got 18 flyers. It's like that event was 6 months ago. Let it go.
Yeah.
Just delete. But anyway, I was just afraid that they wouldn't understand. Like, what is this? Why you do that? You know what I'm saying? And that they wouldn't want to be my friend anymore. That was a true thing for me.
Okay, that's a great place because I gotta ask you this. Somebody in the comments, you're basically the connection. It's the connection of me with either people from this this era of my life or this community of my life. This is me and how I figure out the connection with my family member who told me
Mm-hmm.
that they're gay and then here's their partner and what do I do? Okay, so or this is a question that I've heard recently. Okay, so I can see over there that I think that's a gay couple. So what do we do? Like and really people I think a lot of what people would say is homophobia, which is real. I think a lot
Mm-hmm.
of what is called homophobia isn't that at all. It's just
Mm.
I actually don't know what to do. So I mean, like in any case. So just kind of taking that step by step. I think first of all, the fact that you just said that would they still be your friend? That implies that with Jesus and all, you still wanted relationships with the people that you had been in community with.
Mm-hmm.
Are you all right? You got to plug up your phone. Is it black
Yes,
dot?
I do, because it's about to.
Listen, real stuff. So I can still hear you. So
Yeah, I'm still
what is
listening.
the landing page for that? Community, relationship. Are those relationships you continued? How did they change? How did they morph, evolve?
All right, I'm back. Um, well, for me, I can't see you now though, but
I'm
it's
here.
cool. Okay. Um, they had to change because I changed, and so I think, for the sake of my own soul, I kind of distanced myself from most of my friends for a season because I knew that they were the same people and I was trying not to be. And so I felt like, man, if I'm in their space, if I'm in their world, they're not gonna change what they do because of me. They're not gonna stop smoking, they're not gonna stop drinking excessively, they're not gonna stop talking about girls, they're not gonna stop putting porn on in the living room, we hanging out. And so for me, it was just like I can't, I know I can't be around y'all because I'm gonna become the old Jackie again. But I think over time, not all of those relationships were restored, but we've all had some touch points in many years, and it's been encouraging because many of them, I think they thought it was a phase, which is expected. Everybody gets saved, that one random time, and then they're like, "All right, I'm back, y'all. Let's go." So for me, like I think 7 years in, they were like, "Man, I just expected you to come back." And the fact that like you're still a Christian and you're still loving Jesus seemingly, there's like that says a lot to me about God. And so yeah. Yeah, some of them
So
bought my book. I was happy about that. God is
that is
good.
great. Who is
What?
it your heart to reach with this book? I'm gonna come
It's
back
a
to the community thing, but I gotta ask you, who is it your heart to reach?
It's a few people. It's main so three people. It's those in the church that want to love the LBGT plus community well, that may not understand it, don't get it, got family members. Those in the church who are same sex attracted yet trying to live righteous, trying to live holy, I want to be able to encourage them and say that they're not alone, and then or they're not alone. And then the last group would be those who, gay, lesbian, straight, whatever, but they're not necessarily believers, don't know how to believe, what to believe about what the scripture has to say about sexuality, and I just wanted to offer them a different perspective.
So getting back to this idea of community, as a believer, it's not my issue. It's not what you just said in terms of, I can't be around certain people because it'll change me. But there's that whole debate about what it means to love someone well versus particularly what it means for someone who claims to be a believer but is choosing a lifestyle, how to interact with them. And I've heard the gamut on that from, what you just said about coming to the church and people saying, well, I don't want to be around my daughter. I mean, just, um, and often from a pure place, just trying to figure out what the right thing is to do. So what is your thought on what it looks like to engage with friends, family members, neighbors, people at work, while trying to maintain your clarity and truth, but also loving well, and being able to engage so that, yeah, I mean, I could go on and on trying to ask the question, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, man. I think for one, I think we overcomplicate it because I call it in the book. I say that for me, homosexuality was one of my loudest sins, but it wasn't my only sin. And so I think a lot of times I don't think we're asking these questions about our aunties that got gambling problems, or our sister that just she just likes men a whole lot. We're not thinking through, how do I love my gambling uncle well? We just love them. We just hang out with them. We just engage in conversation. We don't feel the pressure to talk about, Proverbs and what it has to say about what we do with our money and our time, or about stewardship every time we meet with them. We just hang out with them. And so I think I don't think it's any different than that. I think we, in many ways, we just see the flashing red light of, this person is gay, this person struggles with their sexuality, so I have to figure out how to navigate around that. No, I think we need to get back to, no, this person is an image bearer of the living God. They have a first name, they have loves, they have desires, they have friends, they have family, they have certain movies. And so I think when we relate to people on a human level, that takes away all of the stress to figure out how to love them well. You just love them as a human being, as an image bearer. But I think also, as things arise and doors are open for conversation, have the boldness to talk about it. So we can't just be loving people on friendship alone, or friendship evangelism, where it's like, I ain't never gonna talk about the truth. But I think there's a way and a graciousness to talk about the truth that doesn't just sit around who they are attracted to, but rather, do you love God or not? Let's flesh that out together. So
That's good. If there's one takeaway that whoever reads your book, whether it's the three people that you mentioned that you have in mind when you're writing, or if it's just the people that are nosy and go, I mean, I'll just to say that, who are going to pick up your book because they're just like, what'd she say? What'd she say? If there's one takeaway, what do you want that takeaway to be?
God is good. But honestly, I didn't want to write a memoir that left people impressed with me, or more knowledgeable about me than they were about God. I really, really wanted and prayed for and tried to be intentional about making that book so God saturated that anybody would leave it wanting Him. And so I think that's the takeaway, is that whether if they are unbelievers, I want them to walk away saying, wow, I never knew that Jesus was that good and that much better than everything that I thought was worth my soul or my affections. Maybe I should consider trusting him. Or for the believer, man, I forgot that God was that good. Man, there's so much more of him that I can know and believe and trust. And so I just want that people would just want the Lord after they done reading it.
That's really good. Okay, so I got to end with my own curiosity question.
Come
Kind
on.
of not really related exactly to
Hit
the
me.
book. It's just you. It's about you. So you put on something, probably Instagram. You were somewhere working. You were talking about being an achiever, type 3, something. Now,
Enneagram.
Girl, are you into it? Or is it just everybody else
I'm
is into
not.
it?
Nah, I don't. I'm not reading all the like spiritual
No,
books about
I can't. I'm
that.
like, but I know what I am because everybody talks about it all the time. Okay,
Yeah.
so you got a lot going on. Okay, so I've seen some comments on the feed with people wondering, okay, how'd you get into speaking? And maybe they don't know that you were already speaking. You're just a poetry person, you're a word person. But when I
Right.
look at that, and then you're on a plane, and then and people probably wonder the same thing about me, but then you're speaking here, then you're speaking there. Then you're on a tour with your poetry. Oh, you had a baby, but now you're back on the road. Okay, so then then the thing is, it's an A and a B. Answer it however you want to. Number one, how do you keep yourself doing what God asked you to do without being overly busy? Okay.
Mm.
Especially since you have the bend of being kind of that achiever, kind of go getter, kind of gal.
Yeah.
And how do you balance what God has put in you, which is to be a go getter, with the need to rest in Him? So, how do you do it all? And how do you keep yourself in balance?
Honestly, I think I'm feeling at that. I really I don't think I'm doing good with it. But I'm trying to figure it out. I just bought Kevin DeYoung's book called Busyness, and that's getting me together because I know I'm not doing good because my level of anxiety and stress is it's overwhelming, and I know that's not healthy. And so I think what I'm realizing is that my planning isn't good, so I just be saying yes. It's just like, yes, I'll do that. Sure, I'll do that podcast. Oh, you want me to speak to the youth? Sure. Oh, my baby got a doctor's appointment. Yeah, we'll do it at that time too. It's just like I just say yes too much. I think even today I was like, okay, I have way too much to do. I need to be willing to look crazy by rescheduling something. So there's a humility. I don't like looking like somebody that breaks it. Even with y'all, I think I had to reschedule with y'all because I'm like, oh, I double booked. But I don't want
Listen,
to. I don't.
you did,
I don't
and when
want
you
to.
said you needed to, I was like, I get it. Let's figure it out. If I can get it in another time, because I get it.
Yeah. So I say I don't have. I'm not doing well with it. But I'm trying to figure out why, and I'm wrestling through. I'm wrestling through that with friends, and I think for 2019, my 2019 is probably 50% booked. But I felt like God was like, okay, take a step back, look at your months. Will you be in the same position next year that you are in now with the same level of anxiety and the same level of stress because you're not planning a year in advance? And so now I told my booking girl, I said, you know what? Don't book no more for this month and take these weeks out. And because I didn't do that last year, I just let them do whatever they wanted to do. But now I see that that's just insanity, and I'm going to crash really hard if I continue doing that. So that's just being honest.
So now I will be your big sister, not your mom,
Please.
not your mentor, but I will be your big sister.
I need
You
it.
are a very wise woman to start figuring that out now. That
Yeah.
no is a good word, that you have to block off time for yourself, because if you don't, people will block it off. They will block your time off from yourself, and you won't
Yeah.
have any. And I just
Yeah.
want to encourage you. And I mean, I get it. It's a struggle for me too, but I mean, I think um, I've been there. So I just want to encourage you to keep working at that,
Yeah.
uh, because you don't want to be in a scattered place giving less of yourself to the thing that matters. And this is the thing for sure I want to say to you. You have too much creativity that wells up out of you, whether that's poetry or book writing or whatever. When you're speaking, there's too much that has to come out of you for you to be dry. And the only
That's
way
real.
that you will stay full is if you have the bandwidth to be nurtured and nourished. And you do
Mm.
not have the bandwidth to be nurtured and nourished if you're always on the go.
That's real.
So pick at
Speak to
least
me.
one day on your calendar where you don't go nowhere. It's just always off. Just this is my day off.
Yeah, I've
You have to
committed
pick.
last week. I told my friend, I said, okay, I think I need to make Sunday an actual Sabbath. You know what I'm saying? Because I'll go to church, but as soon as I get in the car, I'm checking emails, I'm responding to stuff. I'm thinking, okay, I got to work on this message. I got to do this. But I was like, no, I think I just need to turn stuff off, eat some food, watch CBS, call it a day. And so I think I'm gonna start. I'm gonna start doing that.
Listen, and you know how to reach me. So if I can ever be of any help, listen, I will. I would love to be a big sister in that, because I mean, I'm not perfect. but I
Yeah.
figured a few things out. So you're doing good though. You're doing good. Tell
Thank
your
you.
husband thank you for letting you join me tonight. I know he's back there with the
Oh,
babies.
oh, he wrestling. It's bedtime now though, but he probably so busy he don't even see it.
Well, I want to applaud you again for your authenticity, for your transparency, for your willingness to, in in the words of She's Still There, for you to own your story,
Mm,
and to be willing to share your story, to be committed to community of believers that really need to understand that that we do overcome by the blood, but we also overcome by our testimonies.
yeah.
And that your willingness to be honest about your own is freeing and chain breaking for others. So thanks for being willing to share. Y'all, if y'all have not heard of her book, you haven't bought her book, go look it up right now. Gay Girl, Good God, and be ministered to by the words of Miss Jackie Hill Perry. Thanks for joining me.